Good morning. How awesome is this? Welcome to San Francisco. Welcome to the third annual 3% conference. One of the reasons why it's so challenging for women and men to stay in this field is the unpredictability of schedules, the crazy turnaround times. So I just want to salute all of you for coming here in spite of all of those challenges and giving us 2 days of your time. And we guarantee we'll make it worth it. So day one of the conference this year is themed inspiration. And I thought a lot about what inspires me. And the first thing I want to share is some good news that I hope all of you have heard. So if we could run that short video. So I hope all of you saw the piece of research we put out earlier this year about how 3% is now 11%. And it's interesting how the very first ad agency to sponsor our conference is named 11, and we're now at 11%. So last week when 72 and Sunny called, I thought, So I want to talk a little bit about what inspires me. So what inspires me, the first thing is guts. And my son Henry is here in the front row. He got his driver's license this year. And the first time that my husband and I took him on the freeway to try freeway driving when he had his learner's permit, the thought that just kept running through my head is, there's no way Henry can drive on the freeway because he's never driven on the freeway. And at some point during that ride, I realized the only way to learn how to drive on the freeway is to drive on the freeway. And that is such a great reminder to all of us that the guts it takes as women in this industry is to put ourselves outside of our comfort zones. And a couple people did that this past week, and I wanted to give a shout out. I don't know, is Diane Stember here from Liquid? She's a creative director that I worked with for many years, and she sent me an email about 2 weeks ago that she'd been asked to speak at an event at Hewlett-Packard on her own, on the stage. She'd never done it before. She was petrified. And she said, I'm going to do it because of what you and Cindy Gallup and the 3% movement have told me, which is that it's important for me to be more visible. And she was scared. And the next day, she sent me a follow-up email with a short video clip of her doing her presentation, and she was fantastic. And I think that that begets more of the same. So she drove on the freeway, and it took guts. Is there a woman here named Margot Knopf? Margot, are you here? Margot, I haven't met her yet. She crowdfunded her way to this conference. She really wanted to come, and she couldn't afford it, so she put together an appeal to all of her circle to fund her to come here. And I saw that she actually made beyond her goal, so I think she might be buying drinks later. But that took guts. She drove on the freeway. So the last thing about guts I want to say is that I pay close attention to what gets traction on our Facebook page. And the number one thing that was shared this entire year was not a video. In fact, was not even a photo. It was a thought. And it got shared 83 times. Not liked 83 times, but shared 83 times. And it was a quote that read, "The woman who does not require validation from anyone is the most feared individual on the planet." Guts. So that inspires me. The second thing that inspires me are manbassadors. This is a term we've been using a lot at 3%. Manbassadors are men who understand the differences between the gender and celebrate them and see that together they make for a prosperous world and business world. We have some amazing manbassadors in the world, in the room today. Michael Roth is here from IPG. Scott McAfee from Sanders Wingo. Courtney Buchert from 11, who's been an advocate from the very beginning, and Anthony Reeves of Moxie, amongst many other manbassadors. So the men in the room that are here that are going to own the future, you inspire me. The third thing that inspires me is reinvention. And a lot of people are talking about how our industry is so broken and it needs to be rebuilt. And the good news is that Everything that is the way it is that way because somebody made it up. Everything is invented to start with, so it can easily be reinvented. So all the things about how we get our pricing structure, our deadlines, it's all, someone made that up, and we can reinvent that, and that inspires me. So the fourth thing that inspires me is truth. And by that, I mean, I feel like we're at a tipping point as a nation where everyone is acknowledging that we all have bias. And I feel like until we do that, it's this very defensive conversation that goes nowhere. And I want to read you a quote from Fast Company that I think totally encapsulate this idea of truth and being truthful about your own bias. And here it is. It says, if you are human, you have bias, and it impacts almost every variation of human identity. Race, gender, sexual orientation, body size, religion, accent, height. The question is not, do you have bias, but rather, which are ours? When we are aware of our biases and watch out for them, they are less likely to blindly dictate our decisions. And I've been thinking a lot about gender bias, and I used a quote at Creative Week when I presented that gender bias can literally be deadly. I don't know if you guys heard about that hurricanes that are given female names are more deadly than hurricanes that are given male names because people don't take them as seriously and don't prepare for them. So a Hurricane Catherine sounds less threatening than a Hurricane David. Isn't that fascinating? So when you think about bias, that's how bad it can get. I also don't know how many of you saw about, and this broke my heart, about the guy that was looking for a job and he'd send out resumes to hundreds of places and didn't get a single response. And he changed one letter of his resume and it made all the difference. And the letter was the letter S. He changed himself from Jose to Joe. And suddenly he was employable. So own your biases. Don't be defensive about them, be curious about them, and start a dialogue, because that's how we break it down. And that inspires me. The fifth thing that inspires me is technology and data, and I put these things together because I think they actually are cousins that can work together to change things. And recently I was asked by a reporter, what makes you hopeful about the future for women in your industry? And my response was data. Because I've yet to see a single piece of data that shows that women achieving their potential in the workplace has any downside whatsoever. It's all upside. And I'm probably the only creative director that started in market research. I am a writer who understands numbers, and that's a great combo for any of you that are in the same situation. So I think that a lot of data that's coming out about bias and about things that are spring-loaded against women has an interesting potential answer in technology. And I'll give you an example. I was reading, I'm sure a lot of you saw that women are interrupted more in meetings than men. They're not allowed to finish their thoughts. And you read a piece of data like that, and right away my brain says, how can technology somehow illuminate that and make it better? And the first place I thought of was conference calls. I do almost all of my meetings via Uber Conference, which is a tool we use. And at the end of my conference call, I always get a little recap from Uber Conference about who was on the call, how long the call lasted. And it also tells me who spoke and for how long. And it's kind of mentioned as like an afterthought. So I fired up an email to the marketing director at Uber Conference, and I said, you don't understand that you're sitting on some really interesting data here, and you're not elevating it to your customers. Could your technology also measure if caller A is speaking and caller B interjects and takes over the floor, because that's what data is telling us is keeping women down. And they were like, wow, we'd never thought about that. So keep your mind open to how technology can help some of these challenges, especially for women in the workplace. And we have a lot of friends here in the tech world, which I'm delighted about, Apple and Google and Cisco. So, you know, meet them, and I want to hear what they think about that. All right, the last thing that really, really inspires me is, well, I guess I'll just read it. There it is. Our allies. And I want to acknowledge the best ally I have in Rebecca Rivera. This literally was a movement that I started on my own, and all of a sudden was just in the deep end of the pool and didn't have a lot of support, and Rebecca stepped forward and has been an unbelievable partner to me and is the Chief Creative Officer now of 3%, and it's a real business and we are really making change together. So thank you, Rebecca, for being an ally. And we have a team we've put together of amazing people. I just want to read you a few names of people, and if you stand when you hear your name, but Laurel Stark-Atman, Troy Benson, Jenny Bergman, Cynthia Mahler, Nicole Marquis, Deanna McDonald, Monica Michelle, Andrea Nordgren, Michael Portis, Annie Ryan, and the amazing team from Proper Planning, who are the best event planners on the planet. Please thank them when you see them. Okay, so the most important allies that actually power this event and make a lot of our things happen are our sponsors. And we have 31 sponsors this year. All of you are here, and I want to salute you via a short video and tell you again, you inspire me. Thank you.